Everybody to the Q&A of the second day of the Midwest Video Poetry Festival. My name is Genia Daniels and I'm the managing director of the festival. And today, Megan Katz will be helping me with the Q&A. And would you like to say a few words, Megan?
Oh, I felt so lucky that Genia asked me to do this. I just really loved watching all of the submissions, and some of my favorites made it into this. So I get to now meet you all, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the evening. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome. So I guess we'll start by just going around and having everyone introduce themselves, say where they're from, or where they are currently, the title of their work, and also just maybe a couple sentences about their work. So people who are watching have a familiarity with who you are and your work. So can we start with you, Elvert?
Hi, Genia and Megan and everybody else. I'm Elvert Banares from Manila, Philippines. The film which was selected was Pamati Bala, Ang Akon Mga Ihutik na Binalaybay, which is Listen to the Poems I Will Whisper. It's based on the poetry by a Filipino poet named Carla Kim Sing. And I'm happy to be with everyone else. I just love these selections. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvert. Great, thanks for introducing yourself. And Mark, can you introduce yourself next?
Sure, yeah, I'm Mark. I'm in Adelaide, South Australia. My film is called Shiver. It's about childhood domestic violence. It was originally made for public art projection, but it works on screen as well, so it's really good. Great to be here. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Thank you, Mark. Okay, Rebecca, can you introduce yourself and your work to us?
Sure, thanks. Thanks for having me. My name is Rebecca Vickers. I'm currently based in Bangkok, Thailand, but originally from Madison, Wisconsin. And the work that I contributed is a collaboration between me and my dad, Dennis, who's also here with us. And we created this work specifically for the open call from the Art and Literature Laboratory for the festival. And we're very happy to be here.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Dennis, can you introduce yourself to us also?
Hello. Yeah, I'm Dennis Vickers, and Becca is my daughter, and she lives in Thailand, and I still live in Wisconsin. So we are literally half a day apart. And she invited me to collaborate on this project. And so I showed her a poem, which is modeled after the poetry by George L. Lyons. And I teach at a tribal college here in Wisconsin, the College of Menominee Nation. And the Menominee people in particular, I think Native American people in general, make a strong connection between who you are and where you're from. And so that poem has been really important in my classes. I use it for students to write poetry who normally don't write poetry, to link who they are to where they're from. And so I sent that to Becca, and she did like 99% of the work, and I was so pleased with the result. And I think this is an amazing program you're putting together. I was so enthralled by the diversity of the submissions, and the faces here suggest that. So hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Dennis. Glad you're here too. Thanks. Brian, tell us about yourself and where you are.
Hello from Brooklyn. My film was Unborn Rivers of Sky. I want to make films with my friends, and so I had a a thing where I found some found footage, and I asked my friend who's a poet to just do something. Like I gave him a mood, and then I gave a musician friend a timeline, and just said, you know, give me something this long. I put them together, and that's the film. There was editing on my part, but it's the closest I could get to it, like an automatic film. And so I really wanted to make sure that it just preserved the integrity of everyone who had come before. I'm really excited to be a part of this program. I think it's a beautiful program, especially the animators in the room who have done amazing work. I don't know. I watched it tonight for the first time. It's beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brian. Fausta.
Yeah, hi, I'm Fausta Joly from London, and like Dennis, I'm the poet of Glitter Gutter. It's quite literally based on spotting some glitter, a bunch of glitter in a gutter. And like Dennis, Christina Villa-Nadal is the filmmaker, and I feel like she did 90% of the work, and it was a lockdown labor of love. I don't know if you saw it, but she put glitter on her tongue, which is full commitment to the art. And she's terrific artistic director and visual artist. And I can't wait for her to realize how talented she is. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Fausta. Appreciate it. Kath, is that you go by Kath, not Kathy?
Kate.
Kate?
Kate, yes.
Oh, even better. Thank you.
I'm Kate Darnell, and I'm in, excuse me, East Lansing, Michigan. And my artwork is a piano by Gertrude Stein. I come to poetry film with a traditional calligraphy background. And I've only recently started making things into videos, but that's where I come from. And Gertrude Stein did such interesting things with language, and I was just inspired to try to do something interesting visually with her words.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Okay, Natalie, you want to tell us about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Cook. I am from Atlanta, but I'm currently based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the writer and director of Backwards God, and Backwards God tells the story of how man made God in his image.
Thank you. Chessa. Are you muted?
I'm muted still?
Oh, now you're not.
Okay, I'll try to start over.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Chessa Casper. I am based in Seattle, Washington at the moment. My film was Rotten Fruit. It was a sort of a self-portrait about my experience beginning my medical transition and kind of touching on different things I was feeling at the time, especially because this was made at the very start of COVID, and I was suddenly thrown into an environment where I was somewhat closeted and starting to like cope with like medically transitioning, but being an environment where I couldn't really talk about that or like express that openly. I sort of used this film as an outlet to discuss various reactions I was having to my experience.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I think that's everyone we've gone through, right? Looks like it. Okay. Yeah, unless, just a reminder to everyone, we want to, the audience who's watching, you can all ask questions in the comments. So we will be getting those questions also. We have some questions for the poets and filmmakers as well. So, but feel free to ask questions. Filmmakers can ask questions of each other too. And Megan and I will be, I guess we'll begin. We don't have any questions yet from the audience that I can see. So, all right. Megan, let's see, who wants to go first? Or I can just pick someone. Fausta, did you raise your hand? Oh, I'm impressed. Okay.
I think that's a great starting point because we had a fun conversation about that one.
We really did. Megan and I saw this work really differently. And so that was really interesting. You know, I thought of it, I don't know, should we reveal what we thought about it, Megan?
Yeah, sure.
So I thought it was like this fun, sort of just playful thing. And I think Megan's, she saw some like darker edges to it that I didn't see, but I could see that a little after she pointed it out to me, but that wasn't something that I was initially thinking. I just thought it was, you know, fun,
like fun and light.
Fun and light. But I also have to say, like, it was really interesting seeing who you are, because like your voice is really distinctive. And it's really fun, and I loved listening to it. And actually, it was really stuck in my head for days. Like, and I would like be in the shower, like being like glitter in the gutter. You know, it's sort of funny. But why don't you talk to us about, you know, how you created the work?
And yeah.
Poem. Okay, yeah, because that's all I can talk about because Christina did everything visually. Well, it was through a year of realizing there was a poetry scene that existed. It was like I'd been writing loads and loads and loads privately, and then it was like, wow, people are putting it out there and doing this, and there's a great scene in London. And so I was, when it's kind of like tapping maple syrup, and it's like, you know, it all comes out. So it was during a period like this when you first sort of start writing, and I think I just loved glitter in the gutter, and it just flowed from there. And there really is not much else to it. It was editing. And then Megan, I guess I'm dying to know what your darker perception of it was. But afterwards, it was like, God damn it, all these fun things that are bad for the environment, that sucks. And glitter is on that list. And so I guess that was my posthumous reading of it ultimately at the end. But no, not intentionally meant to be ridiculously fun, but afterwards, damn it, is it okay to celebrate glitter now? Came into my head.
Yeah. Well, the filmmaker presumably chose the images, right? But that, like, the image of the scissors around the tongue, like, was so visceral for me. Like, and maybe I think that might be the main thing that kind of gave me that like edgy feeling. But also just that sense of like the aftermath of excess, and kind of like that you can't wash off the sort of like,
I know, joy,
like you can't.
Joy in the not washing off the excess. I think that's what it is. But anyway, yeah. That's cool. Like, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah. But anyway, it was lovely.
Yeah, it was really. So you and the filmmaker live near each other, or was it just you did it all from a distance? Is that how you created the work?
No, so I do know her, and she does live in London, but she went back home to Spain for lockdown. So it was one of these fun moments where, because I know how talented she is, and she had recorded an event of mine in this very house actually, and she did it with such an incredible eye, and she was, at the moment, she was really into VHS and that aesthetic, and so she did record it on a camcorder and then digitized it, a VHS camcorder. So when she approached me like, send me some of your work, I was like thrilled, and I sent her a bunch of things, and that was the thing that stuck in her head. And so yeah, it was total labor of love during lockdown, and great to connect with her while she was away. But yeah, we do know each other in person and in London. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I love the way there's a part in the poem where you say, you're like kind of screeching or saying wow or something. And I love those little punctuated parts of the poem. It makes it really fun for me, and it's very vibrant. So I really appreciated that part of it.
Thank you so, so much. That's lovely to hear.
Absolutely. All right. Megan, would you like to pick the next person?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, I'll go to Elvert. This is one of my favorites.
I like this. It's like a game show. So
yeah, I didn't know we were going to be
taking them on the
picking.
square. Who among you?
But yeah, I'll just talk about some. So I guess a question that I have, which is just a quick question, but I do want to talk about some of the stuff that I really loved, was is the text of the poem exactly the same as the original? Just kind of like, are the words the same? I tried to find the original poem, but I couldn't.
I can send the original poem. It's supposed to be a fun poem, and
Right.
I made it into something serious. The original poetry by Carla Kim Sing is very flirtatious. It's a woman riding in a tricycle. In the Philippines, it's like this motorcycle with something that you have to sit on, and it's something very distinct and unique to places that have long travel. And it's a small vehicle. It's like the tuk-tuk in Thailand. And when you sit there, it's such an intimate moment between the passenger and the driver. And the poetry talks about the woman who's supposed to be she has a crush on the driver. So it's really a fun poetry, and I just completely changed the tone, the mood. And at first, I'm very curious how the poet would react to the film. So I wrote her this long message telling her that, I wanted to do something about your poem, but please understand that I have a different way of interpreting it, which is the exact opposite of how she wants it to be. It should be fun, should be light. But I was surprised she gave me an even lengthy response, saying that she liked the work, and she saw another perspective of her work and how we interpreted that. So I thought this was one of those best collaborations I've ever had. And this was supposed to be a challenge because we have a workshop. I was a resource person. We challenged everyone to pick a poetry. So I actually picked this out of luck because we had a bag and we had a series of poems, and each major filmmaker from where I come from, that's in Iloilo City, beautiful place. And we are supposed to shoot the poetry coming from the same place. So it's very organic in many ways because we come from the same place, we come from the same city, we have the same sort of culture, and that helped a lot in the interpretation and inspiration of the poetry. I'm curious how you saw that, though.
The poem.
The film, yes, both.
The film, yeah, there was a real sense of place to it that I love. Just from the opening shot on that road, I just felt very landed in that, the texture of that environment, and the close-ups of the rain on the mud, and it looked like a concrete ship or some kind of abandoned ship. All those things just were very, very evocative, and the sense of like the two people it felt to me like they had been together in the same place for a very short moment, and the rest of the video was about how they were, how the place held the memory of them like ghosts. And so they might be there at different times, but the memory, the kind of, what do you call it? Like their imprints were still there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then the sense of rewinding, coming and going, and like rewinding, stepping forward and backward into the water was really, really interesting. I had a few kind of like technical questions, but that I think inform this bigger picture. But so I noticed that the use of color, sometimes you kind of desaturated it completely, and then sometimes the color was in there. That was one thing I noticed. And then the other question I have is like, who's the third person that shows up briefly there in the middle? There are three. There are two men.
Okay, there's a lot in there, but thank you. I'm happy you got it, because it's not an easy piece. Converting something light into something different. I was interested in space, and I was interested in the relationship of people using time and space. And I paralleled it with, if you're sitting down in a vehicle with the driver, with your crush, there's so many things going on in your mind, and it brings back memories. And that particular moment will also create a memory. So by doing so, we have shared memories. And in our life, there will always be a third person, whether it's romantic or whether it's not, but there will always be others. So the third person is basically representation of perhaps a past, an ex. It could be an observer. It could be somebody who sees your love together. I'm happy you mentioned about the textures and the colors. It was meant. Those that were desaturated were actually supposed to be part of the memory and the place. And those that are well saturated, the ones with the greenish color, is supposed to be something that's something surreal for them. It's something happening in the mind, the going back, the moving forward. That is how I wanted it to look like. One thing though, it looked like we shot it in a very, very far place. But there's, I will tell a secret. There is a place under the bridge in our city where nobody actually sees a lot. There's some mangroves down there. So just 5 or 10 steps below the bridge are a series of mangroves. So even people coming from my place thought we really shot it very far. It's actually just below the bridge. Of course, it's so noisy. So there's lots of vehicles passing by. It's traffic. We had to do sound design. So it's not really
Brian can
far
relate
place
to
shot.
that. It was very beautiful. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so
What's
much.
your you're having a reaction over there?
Oh, I just wanted to say that was like one of my favorite shots. I didn't know where I was going, and you led me
Thank
there.
you, Brian.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elvert. That was
Thank you, Genia. Thank you, Megan.
to hear about your work. I wanted to, for our next question, I wanted to ask Kate a question about her work, a poem, Gertrude Stein. So I noticed that the music that you chose for that work was Jelly Roll Morton. And that particular piece of music, who I love his work. And I know they're contemporaries. And so I'm just curious, like, why you chose that particular piece of work or, music to put with the poem. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the music the music was very important part of this, and it made sense to have piano music, of course. But part of the reason was that the music was pretty contemporary with when the poem was first published. But also, I associated the piano rag and the layering of chords and notes and the right and the left hand parts. I associated that with the layering of the words and the calligraphy. And so it was there was never a question of what kind of music I was going to choose. And so I just started doing searches for stride piano and rags and that for this. But it was on a lot of different levels, you know, both the aesthetics and then the contemporary nature of the music, really.
Yeah, I liked that. The music is honestly what drew me to it initially, you know, and then, you know, sort of the poem secondary. But is there something about the poem in particular that stood out to you, or why you like it?
There's something about, and again, there's something about the repetition of things in a lot of Gertrude Stein's work, and in this one as well, that drew me to it. Because a lot of my work, both in video and on paper, is right now is layered words, one over top of the other, and I find that really interesting, that repetition over and over again of something, and turning something sort of Gertrude Stein was really working with words in a very abstract way. And in some respects, it was a real challenge to do this because her work is a little bit, you know, incomprehensible anyway. And then to do something else to it was a little, you know, it kind of pushed it a little bit. But it's the repetition and the layers of words that I find interesting in her work, and in this piece in particular. And then I threw in there's a few illustrations in the piece that I did at the really late in the process, to kind of anchor the video a little bit more, because it was a little out of control.
I thought the layering came through really beautifully with the words, with the use of calligraphy. Layered on top, yeah.
Yeah. The movement of the words, by the way, it was meant to sort of mimic a piano roll in a player piano, the way they move up and off the page, or off the screen, I should say. That was also another thing I was working with.
I saw, Brian, were you clapping there?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate, for that. Let's see here. Let's see, Mark, how are you?
Well, thanks.
Good.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is my first Zoom chat ever.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not even sure what I'm doing. So hopefully
you're doing great so far.
You can hear me and see me.
You're muting and unmuting like a pro.
I saw everyone else do it. So I should do that too. That seems to be the etiquette.
Well, I'm very impressed. Like, how did you get away with this being your first Zoom chat? I'm like so jealous.
Don't get distracted. We need to talk about the videos.
I'll be uploading my tutorial for Zoom meetings later on. You can check it out.
So thanks. I was really interested in your work. Was visually very striking, like the colors and the animation. And I didn't realize when you said in your beginning comments that it was a projection initially. Is that what you used it for, or that an art piece?
Yeah, I think it's quite static intentionally, because the idea was that it was an urban projection, like a public art projection. And so it was, I guess, supposed to look like a moving mural. There's a lot of street art in our city, and so it was supposed to be some moving street art. So that's why it's sort of static and everything's sort of locked in place. But the poem I wrote for my partner, who had an experience with childhood domestic violence, and I think my initial motivation for writing the poem was to communicate that I understood the story of what happened to her way before I met her. And I think it's important that the poem's about surviving that, but not only surviving that, but triumphing and becoming a stronger person as a result. The last line, I shiver not for you. I tremble for the thunder is the trouble that bothers you. So it's about the person at the end who's responsible as well, sort of maybe living with those actions and feeling some remorse and some guilt about that. So that's what the poem's about. She's actually in the film, and she did a great job of remembering and reciting that poem. So I hadn't watched it for a while, so it was interesting to see it today on screen, and it reminded me of the technical difficulties that I had to get my head around at the time as well. And so it's nice to see that, and you feel that you've traveled sort of from a technical point of view as well since you made the film. So it was nice.
I agreed. I thought she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Like her pacing and her emphasis were just perfect. Yeah.
We did it. We shot it in the front bedroom of our old house, and on that day, the roadworks, they suddenly started making roadworks that day, and so we were stopping and starting between these, imposing mechanical sounds from bulldozers and things like that. So it was really quite difficult, and I had a deadline for it as well. So it was crazy. So that you can't really see that in her performance. It's just solid. It's beautiful.
I really thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to hear more background about it, because and to know that the woman in the piece is your partner makes a big difference. I feel like understanding that.
Yeah, it's incredibly personal. Yeah, and she watched it with me earlier, and she hadn't seen it for a while as well. And she said, "I got shivers," and I said, "No, that's funny because it's called Shiver." But she didn't even realize that she wasn't making a pun. But yeah, it was. So it still resonates. It's a very personal project, I think, for both of us. The whole process from writing the poem to her, for me filming her reciting the poem and then putting it all together. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Great, I'm glad. Thank you. We're really glad that your work was in our festival. So
yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thanks.
And congratulations on your first Zoom call.
Yeah, it's going well so far.
Great. All right. Doesn't look like there's any questions from the audience yet, which is strange, but that's fine. We have plenty of things to talk about. Let's see here. Megan, did you have an idea about what you want to talk about next?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, it's hard to choose. There's two. So there are two that I think are like really interesting in conversation with each other, and that's Backwards God and Rotten Fruit. They both feel like they're like sort of like queering origin stories, or like disrupting origin stories in an interesting way. So I thought I'd just mention that because I think there's like a lot of interesting conversation that could happen between them. But I'll start with Natalie. Yeah, I just loved the way you played with sort of recentering the womb. That's what I wrote down in my notes. It seemed like the piece had an arc. Like you start with panning down, and then it ends going back up. And so I just had this sort of, and then yeah, it was just really, there were so many powerful lines and like interesting flippings of like that phrase, like behind every great man there's a woman, and you switch that around to like behind every woman there's a man waiting to bend her over. It just like really powerful stuff. Adam's apple still lodged in man's throat, and the nipple as the period on the death sentence. There were just a lot of really powerful lines. The ending, I loved that notion of sort of replacing God with time, and like the only truth is death. I guess my question, there were these three different settings, right? There's like the field, there's the sort of suburban neighborhood, and then there's this black and white space of like concepts, right? Like where things are man, woman, black, white, and it's sort of not located in an environment. And that middle part, I would love to hear you talk about that. It looked like a dance. It was very beautiful, and it was the sort of mirroring, and that's where you so I guess maybe just you can talk about anything, but I'd love to hear about the role of that sort of choreography in the middle there.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for all of that. I'm just receiving all of that. Thank you so much for everything you just said. The black and white scenes, I wrote a play the same year that I wrote Backwards God, and I didn't know Backwards God was going to end up being a short film. So I wrote the poem, and then years later it became a short film. And when I was writing the play, it was very vague. I just knew that I wanted to explore gender relations between Black men and Black women. I was reading James Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk, and I thought that he just did he's everything, one of the best writers of all time, but I just thought he did such a great, this understatement, excellent job of exploring gender relations, but through fiction. And I wanted to do something where it created conversation amongst all genders, because I just feel like specifically within the Black community, I feel like there's so many conversations that are had, but I wanted us to have these conversations with each other. So I was trying to figure out what visuals to create that would be parallel to the mission that I wanted to accomplish. And I just thought about how we're all mirrors of each other. And I think that is where that choreography came from. And I actually went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was in a program called First Wave. And we always had to do these movement exercises where we were mirroring each other in class. And I think that really, really stuck with me. And then I started incorporating that exercise as choreography within my work. And it's very organic and very genuine, because in rehearsals, we were dealing with these issues in real time. So even though we were rehearsing for a play, we're all Black. And so like it's all our lives, even though like we're still doing a play. And so when we would do these mirroring exercises in rehearsals, people were actually doing things, vulnerable things were coming up in the movements that they were choosing to do. And rather than looking at this person that you think is a different gender than you see yourself. And so it was a lot of things happening just in us playing with mirroring each other in those movements. And then I just took that and put it into Backwards God. And yeah, I just love all your feedback, because that it's not necessarily like a physical space, those black and white shots, but yeah, like I think so much can be interpreted just from watching people mirror each other, but that's my long answer to that.
Yeah, thank you. It was really beautiful.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks so much, Natalie.
To you for everything.
I would love to move on, since Megan and I had that conversation about Natalie's work and Chessa's work having some familiar narratives with each other in terms of, narratives that we're born into and how we navigate that experience. And so we did have, wasn't a question, but a comment from someone that says they're just really excited to hear more about Rotten Fruit. So can you talk more about that, your process for making that work? I personally loved the old footage of in the beginning. It's such a striking, it's funny, right? It's striking and it's funny. And it reminded me of these really old films I had to watch in grade school. And so I would love to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, so all the found footage and audio in the start and the beginning, and there's some found footage in the middle, but I mainly focused on the sound design for those. It's all taken from like these outdated educational videos from like the 50s and 60s. And I knew I wanted to do something working with, actually, honestly, I initially was just going for found footage because I wanted to do something relating to like the concept of biological sex, and I really like microscope footage. So that was the only, just like visually. So that was what I was kind of going in for. But then I started finding all these videos that were like puberty educational videos. And I started trying to cut them up and put them back together and see if I could manipulate them at all. And I found out like, most of the time it wasn't working. But there were a few times when I found I could just splice at the right points and it sounded like they were saying something completely different. I think the first one that started me like on this course was one of the ones at the end, where it says something about some of these hormones will bring about changes that finally turn a girl into a man. Which I mean, personally, like I'm not a binary trans man. I'm not really specifically anything, but like I really liked the process of like reclaiming these narratives that were super like cisnormative, super binary. Yeah, putting you into these boxes and like taking back those boxes and then rearranging them as I wanted. And so that was, I kind of like Brian's, but like with myself, started with like audio and visual totally separate. And then kind of, I pretty much, trying to think how to say this. I had like little snippets of like 30 seconds or so of like the stanzas pretty much, but I didn't really know how to order those or what to, where to place like the captioning or like where to place the audio for different things. And so I ended up organizing it by kind of common threads that would go from one to the next, going from like the first one and the last one both being kind of about reclaiming these narratives, and also about like origin and like a life cycle, and having the second one also be about origin, following from the first one and moving into this issue of like identity, and just kind of moving through it in that way. It definitely wasn't a piece that I knew where I was going with it until like the last couple days putting everything together. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, were you saying something, Megan? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to go on and on about how well I thought it worked, and like from everything from the framing of the shots to the sound. You said the sound design was just like really so spot on. It's funny to hear you say that you didn't know how it was all going to. It feels so intentional and so precise. And yeah, and I know we don't have time to ask all my questions, but I'll just say these things so that you can hear the questions that came up for me. It's like about predestination, sort of like, because you have all this stuff about the blinds in the palm of the hand and the tarot, and like, I think Dennis said something about this question of like where you're from being telling you who you are, and it feels like you're questioning. You're sort of saying like, do I need to disassociate from my ancestors in order to become this new thing? Like there's that question about where you come from and how that determines where you're going and all that. So yeah, it just feels really rich. Like we could spend the whole time talking about your piece. So thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so appreciate it. Yeah, I would love to talk to Rebecca and Dennis about their work together as parent and child, daughter. So yeah, this was really interesting. I love that that you worked together on this. I don't feel like we see much of that in general, like parents and kids working on stuff together. So it's kind of cool. Can you tell us like how this was your idea initially, Rebecca?
Yeah. So as my dad kind of mentioned in his intro, he often uses this poem in his classes as like an introductory activity with his students. And actually the last time that I was able to visit Wisconsin. I attended his class as well, and they were doing this activity on that day when I was there. So I was kind of familiar with that activity, and also the idea that, you know, drawing the place that we're from, kind of informing who we are, and that connection, that kind of loop between place and person. And also at the time that the open call for this festival came about, I was actually supposed to be traveling to Wisconsin to spend time with him, but due to the pandemic was unable to do that. So then also personally having experiencing a kind of a break in that connection between like the place that we're from and being unable to go there, and what that kind of feels like. And so for me, the imagery part, I wanted it to feel really kind of put an emphasis on the idea of sort of looping and that connection between place and person. So my dad sent the words over, and then I just used images that I had from like my sketchbook during the lockdown. I did a lot of just, you know, small scale drawings. But in order to give them a kind of feeling of looping, and also a sense of duration that would work for the video format, I just turned them into digital images and then manipulated them just a little bit so that they could have some kind of space in time as well. Yeah, and then I got some photographs from my dad of him that I was used to create the drawings, and kind of overlaid them over those images as a way of kind of putting person into place, I guess, and making that connection. Yeah, but it was fun. It was great to work on together. I feel really grateful for the opportunity to be able to connect with him in this way during this time when we're physically separated.
I love the fact that it's a poem about you, Dennis, and where you're from, but then that's also part of where you're from, right? That's half of where you're from, Rebecca. And so it's true for, the title is true for both of you in a way that I thought was really sweet. Yeah.
Great.
Becca mentioned that I use this in my classes, in one class in particular. I teach at a tribal college at the College of Menominee Nation. And the Menominee people are very proud of the fact that they still occupy their ancestral lands. And, you know, the burial mounds that are millennia old are their ancestors. And the dance circles that are here and there are, you know, where their ancestors danced. And so when I asked them to write this poem, I want them to sort of reach back, not just to their oldest memories or childhood memories, but to their links to that land and to describe it. And I use this as a getting to know each other exercise, the first class period. So they literally have 10 minutes to write the poem. And I used to watch them squirm doing that and worry about the pressure I put on them. And I thought, okay, this will be easier if I write one of these too. And so I would spend the 10 minutes squirming too. And this poem is actually the product of 10 minutes of squirming in a classroom. And I think it illustrates that not only is it the land that you're from, but it's the people that you're from. The pictures that Becca mentioned are my parents and my brother who passed away last year. And those people are literally embedded in who I am. And several people have mentioned identity tonight. And I think it's like one of the core interests of poetry is just figuring that out, who I am. And let me echo Becca's sentiment that I'm so pleased to be part of this and to have worked with her on this project. And it's a great experience. Thank you so much for putting this together.
We're so glad you could join us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dennis and Rebecca. It's great. think Brian.
Brian.
Hi. Let's see.
Hello.
All right. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And I was really intrigued by this one, just as I personally, when I was first sort of discovering my interest in art and poetry in high school, I used to do exquisite corpses with my friends all the time, not through video, but drawing. And so I was like, oh, I love this. This is so great. So the fact that you had 3 different people, like a musician, you doing the video, and then someone else writing a poem was really exciting to me. And I guess I just want to, have you done this kind of work with these same people before, or is it sort of a new project for you?
It's a little bit of a new thing. I've worked with, I did a 1-minute thing a couple years ago with the same poet, where I was trying to do Exquisite Corpse. And for those who don't know, Exquisite Corpse was a surrealist exercise where you fold a sheet of paper 4 ways. Each person leads off the lines the other one has drawn, and you create an image that should not be born. You create an image that should not exist. That's the Exquisite Corpse. It's a beautiful thing that has no business being alive. And I'm trying to figure out a way to do that in cinema. I'm not the first one. A lot of people have done this, but I wanted to do it with friends that I'm not a musician, I'm not a poet. I want my friends who are musicians and poets to sort of participate in this. And to be perfectly honest, I did this for my friends. I want to be near them, and we can't be. And we did this a year ago, so this is before COVID. But the idea is that we can create something even though we're apart. And I found this footage in when I lived in Florida for a couple of years, and I found this footage in an estate sale, and it just said Illinois 1957. And that box, I kind of like went through, and I found it very disenchanting that someone would sell their own memories, that someone did not care enough to keep this for their own family. And so for me, I can't just show it. I have to give it new meaning. I need to give it some kind of, I don't know the word, but I need to give it some kind of life. And so I asked my friend, I was like, well, just give me a few words. And I told my musician friend, give me 3 minutes and a half, and I'll edit it as an Exquisite Corpse, as as much as I can make it an automatic picture, the way it should be. His name is Daniel Devon. He's an amazing poet, and his name is Jason LeRae Keener, just the absolute best when it comes to melancholy music. And I just happen to be friends with these people, and I want to work with them, but we don't live anywhere near one another. And what they gave me, I cut together. That's the last thing. The text on screen is typed on a typewriter, and a few times, and so I animated it kind of in After Effects. But that's the only thing that is an edit in the film. Everything else, the music he gave me is exactly what I used. The words that Daniel gave me, exactly what I used. There's nothing else. There's no edits other than exactly what you see.
It worked. I love that it worked. So it didn't, until I read the description, I had no idea how it was made. And then after I watched it again, there's even a line in the poem of shedding for a moment as wings, the story.
Yeah. Oh,
This idea of dropping the story getting shed like wings is like exactly what you were addressing.
yeah.
In trying to take this story that had shed its wings and give it new.
Yeah. But he had
wings or
never
something.
seen the footage.
Right, I know.
He had no idea where it would go, and the musician had no idea like what it would, give. I gave him a timeline. That was it. So it was sort of like this automatic idea that the poetry can exist and it can it become more of a meaning with something that is discarded. And I can't tell you enough. I talk about this frequently, but shedding your ideas, shedding your like past emotions, like for someone to give their own home movies away, just sell them at an estate sale, that says a lot. I don't want to, be problematic, but like selling your own memories is kind of like a very, very dark thing. Someone should love this, someone should love you, but for me to find this is kind of a depressing thing. And so to give it new life, I just need to give it something else, and that's what I was trying to do. I also think that it's the best way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved that work. It was really interesting. And I saw it said Illinois. I'm from Illinois originally, so I was like, maybe I'm related to these people. Having all these I was like, no, I don't think so. But it was just really interesting to see this sort of like where in Illinois. I was trying to like figure out. You don't know anything. So.
Oh, 1957. If you're around then, you can.
Yeah.
And it's an 8mm.
Right. What were you saying, Megan?
Oh, just that I just wanted to say that we got a message. Jolynn wrote that someone wrote, I don't have a question because this form is so new to me, but just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the whole program and this discussion. So many striking and beautiful images and effects. So I just wanted to share that.
Wait, where did you see that? I'm sorry.
Jolynn wrote it in the chat. It says like, I guess it just went to me.
Oh yeah, because I didn't see it.
From a woman, a viewer named Kathryn. Thank you, Kathryn.
Okay. Yeah, and there was, I know we have to wrap it up pretty quick here, but one more question for Backwards God from someone, and it says, after it was all finished, did translating the poem to video change or influence your own understanding of the poem in any way?
Thank you for whoever asked that question. I think time has helped me to understand it on a deeper level. I wrote that poem when I was 21, and I wrote it after I went through some really, really troubling things. And so I think because I made it into a short film, or I translated the poem into visuals a lot later. I just think all that time, it helped me to even be able to develop it into a short film. I think I had to go through a huge self-discovery journey, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, but it like Backwards God came from a period in my life where I questioned everything I thought I knew, like everything about me changed after that troubling time. And so that poem came as a result of me questioning everything. And so I think because I made it, I think maturity and healing and more experiences, that is why I was even able to make it into a short film. And I know I'm not directly answering the question, but yeah, it was such a organic thing, Backwards God, that sometimes it's even hard for me to answer questions about the process because it really, this whole thing has been bigger than me.
I think a lot of times when you do work and you come back to it later and, you know, do something with it like create a film, it just, you experience it in a whole new way, right? Because you're a different person now, right?
Yeah, that's essentially what happened. Yeah.
So I love that, honestly, when that happens, just because I feel like you get to see where you were and you get to see that growth, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, you're documenting that, you know, that's pretty great.
I'm grateful that you can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been so wonderful to have you all here and sticking through this and waiting in the queue for a while, but I really appreciate all of you coming.
Joining us from all over the world. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it really is. And this being our first year, we were just really blown away with how much, how many submissions we got and how much wonderful work we got to witness and see and have in our festival. So we're so grateful for all of you. For those watching in the audience, we have a survey that you can take about, and people, and so can the artists who participated in the Q&A and in the festival. So we would love for you to fill it out and give us some feedback about our festival. And it's in the comment section of the YouTube channel. And also, if you like our work and you want to support what we do, you can donate a little bit of money. We like to make our events free to people if we can, or very low cost, because we think that art is really important to connect people and we want to make it available to as many people as possible. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was really beautiful.
So much for organizing this.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh my God. Yeah, Genia deserves a huge round of applause.
Oh, absolutely.
Bravo.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night,
Have a
everyone.
good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Genia.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Elvert.
Elvert.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Kate.
Chessa. Hi, Kate.
Bye, Rebecca.
Okay.